Welcome to LiveFit with me, Stace Holland, the show where I help you find your fit and find your happy. I'm so happy. Well, welcome to LiveFit with Stace. Thanks so much for joining us. This is the show where we help you find your fit and, of course, find your happy. Now, the amount of people that have been removing meat and animal-based products from their diets are increasing at a rapid rate. And with films like What the Health and The Game Changers becoming so popular, I think there is incentive to switch to a plant-based diet. But the question is, at what cost? So I've invited into studio with us dietitian Mpotsukudu, as well as plant-based doc and nutritional consultant Bev VM. Both of them are authors, and I have their books with us as well. Just to chat about this, we are going to bust some myths. We're going to talk about the pros and the cons. And at the end of the day, I hope that we provide enough information for you to make an informed decision on whether or not you want to switch to a more plant-based diet. They really are becoming popular diets. I believe that in some schools, ladies, the schools have made decisions to remove animal-based products. The concern I think that I've been seeing is that I am predominantly a plant-based diet. I call myself an organic flexitarian. I believe now that you've trademarked the word.
You can call yourself.
Do I have to pay your royalty, babe? But I see the benefit in still having some animal-based products. My concern is that there are a lot of unhealthy foods out there that technically qualify as being vegan foods.
Like Oreo biscuits.
Yeah, exactly.
You can do Oreo biscuits and peanut butter white sandwiches and you're vegan.
Yeah, that actually came up in the Game Changers movie.
Not clever.
Yeah. Before we get into the topic, I want to hear more about you guys, how you ended up where you are today, your health journey personally, and then also what led to you guys authoring some books as well. Mpo, I'll start with you, closest to me.
Okay.
What made you want to become a dietitian, and just some insights from your journey to date?
I don't remember exactly why, but I was very good in maths and science and biology in school.
Yeah.
And I come from a family that cooks. So I think in grade 10, when I found out that actually food can make your skin glow and it's good, it has vitamins and it makes the body work healthy, I thought, wow, and you can make money out of it. So that's how I became a dietitian.
Bonus there.
I thought that's the easiest way
ever. Bev, how did you get to become a plant-based doctor?
I started off in the health world because of my own addictions to sugar and wheat.
Wow.
And slightly to alcohol.
Okay.
So I would say my name is Bev, I'm a sugarholic. So that's what got me going on this whole path. So I would always be on this diet or that diet. I was never overweight, but just to lose those 2 kilos or whatever. But whatever diet I would try, back in the day, we're talking in about 95, I would go on this way of eating and then find out be binge eating and go on whatever diet it would be and binge eat. And then I got a degree in psychology. So I also understood that food would help people psychologically far more than me chit-chatting to them for an hour.
Wow. But you call yourself an organic flexitarian and not a vegan. Why is that?
Organic Flexitarian, the book which I wrote, and the name is that I want people to find organic, but be flexible if you can't.
Okay.
Because at the beginning, when I used to really want organic,
it's not easy, yeah.
I ended up limiting and never having fruit because I couldn't find organic. And it was so limiting. And then obviously going out and so on, you lose out. And then I also don't want people to think that it's just, don't bother if you can't find organic.
Yeah.
Do the best to grow your own. The first thing you do is grow some sprouts. You can grow it in your kitchen.
From what I've learned is most of my friends that are vegan, their decision was informed first and foremost from a conscious, spiritual, moral perspective. They didn't want to harm animals. And they didn't necessarily think of the health implications. For them, it was just a bonus. I don't know, what are you seeing in your practice, Mbo? Is it changing? Are people doing it because it's popular?
I get a mix, but mostly people are doing it for their own health.
Okay.
Not actually the health of animals. So they'll be thinking, I need to cut down meat because when I do consultations, I always say, can we widen the variety of your foods? Because with the amount of meats that we're eating, you end up with meat being half the plate. And if you can halve it and add beans and lentils, which people really don't eat much, and a lot of people think of them as poverty foods, they start feeling better.
It is
poverty food. So they start feeling better, and more are starting saying, I went a day without meat, or they will try make their own veggie bag, like a bean.
Like a patty.
Patty, and they're like, it didn't taste bad. So I think more and more people transition slowly, but it's for their health. Mostly than what I'm seeing with conscious of animal rights and let's not harm.
That's interesting.
The people that are changing to vegan because of game changers, let's say, or whole food plant-based. In the game changers, they didn't say the word vegan that often, but still, we translate it to vegan,
I think that's also adding to the
everyone
confusion
translates
as
it to
well.
vegan.
We're trying to be politically
but a lot of those people in there were vegan, but they most whole food plant-based. But unfortunately, let's say young girl teenagers, they will be the ones who think, or the athletes, but I must do this for the animals and also because it's going to be good for my body. But then they go on the whole route of buying processed vegan foods that are packaged and still got heated fats and so on. Don't do that. I've never done that when I've been vegan or vegetarian. I've gone back and forth. I've had meat sometimes over the years.
You've done raw food diets as well.
I've done raw food here and there. But so you need to look at whole foods.
You still don't need to look at quality at the end of the day. The same thing with meat. I say to people, if I'm going to eat meat, I question where it comes from. In terms of your vegan clients, are most of them healthy, or are a lot of them struggling to get the necessary micronutrients from their diets?
I tend to get a lot of clients who've already started, but they realizing that they get hungry very quickly, or the skin is dry, or they just don't have a lot of energy. So my job is actually not actually convincing them, they're already there, is to say, you need these nutrients, this is where you can get them. This is how you pad your meals. Vegan doesn't mean beetroot and butternut and all the nice stuff. You have to have beans and you have to have nuts. So when they learn the combination, then they become much more healthier. So a lot of them have already started. I don't think I've convinced anybody to become vegan.
Would you convince someone to become vegan?
No.
Okay.
No.
And why, in your professional opinion, why is that?
I think when we're doing functional medicine and functional nutrition, we always say N equals to 1 with personalized medicine. Some people have been vegan for many years, and suddenly they wake up and they say, I'm craving meat. So it's about listening to your body. So if you're drinking milk and you realize that milk makes you sick with bloating, or you get a skin rash, it's your body saying to you, milk doesn't like you. So it's in a relationship saying we need to like each other. So it's about, I teach listening to your body. If you find out that when you eat meat at night, you don't sleep better, but when you eat it during the day, you find, then it's that, it's intuition. I can't dictate to you. You live in your own body. I can't force you to do it.
The family that I come from, and I was born in Zim, grew up in South Africa, I have family still in Zim, Zambia, Botswana, Swazi. You tell our families to take out meat, and they... You ask a black man to remove meat from his diet, and he will look at you as if you are crazy. He will look for the cameras and say, are we on a show or something, right? How do we change this mindset?
I look at your diet and I widen it. So if I see you're not eating beans, I would say why you're not eating beans, and the stories come. And when depending on how deep your poverty stories are, I'm going to be gentle. Do you understand where we all come from? But I like the stories of the grandmothers. So I will ask them about their childhood. What did you eat?
Nice.
And it's a lot of the beans and lentils and doing rojo with the ground nuts.
What are some of the other, if we extend the conversation, some of the arguments that I've gotten into are, we're also removing Amazonian forest to plant crops, plant-based crops, so like corn. That for me doesn't make sense.
Terrible.
So where's the consciousness on that front as well?
Well, I mean, the consciousness, that's a big reason to go vegan. And you take someone like Greta Thunberg, who's trying to save the planet. She definitely wouldn't eat animal products because, I mean, just if everybody goes 88, 94, 100% vegan, you will be saving the planet big time. And they're clearing those Amazon forests for animals.
But
And
I don't think the studies are showing that it's just for animal produce, that it is for grains like quinoa. It's to support the chocolate/cacao, whatever industry, because we're demanding more of these type of products. And now you see GMO-free corn everywhere, but that corn still needs to be grown.
It's partly, yes, it's for that, but 70% of soy is fed to animals. So they're growing it. And I think you can correct me, somewhere it said for 1 pound of beef, you can get 16 pounds of wheat. Am I right? Have you also heard that?
There's some studies saying you would, I don't know what the stats is, but the amount of land that we're using to plant wheat and corn, corn and soya that is supposed to be eaten by animals, for that much, you get this much protein. So it's not about using the amount of land that we have sustainably. So we're cutting out the forest, we're removing wild animals so that we can plant and also then increase the amount of land that we use for feedlot. So it's another argument to say if we all reduce the amount of meat that we're eating, then we won't actually be harming the environment the way that we are doing. So it's about thinking.
But if we also, as plant-based eaters, are more conscious about what we're choosing and what we're demanding, then land won't also be used to plant the crops that we're demanding in such in the quantity.
We don't need the quinoas.
Yes.
Do you guys want to taste my chocolates? Or we don't have,
I do want to taste. Do you want to taste the chocolates?
I'm allergic
as well?
to nuts, so no.
Well, there's no nuts in here.
Okay.
So these are made with cacao butter, cacao powder, a bit of agave nectar. So that's what's
they're quite pretty as well.
Does
so
anybody else want?
You use molds.
These are nice.
Okay, what?
Cacao butter, cacao powder, and agave nectar. And a little bit of my special Sattvic spice, which has all sorts of flavors in.
Chocolate is a bean, it comes from a tree.
So for me, it's vegetarian. Exactly.
And fermented.
These help people to get off sugar and chocolate.
This is lovely.
If you have one of these after your meal, you've done your sugar thing. And it's not sweet, it's creamy still, it's not gritty, it's nice.
No, I think you're preaching to the converted. My director, Khalid, might disagree with you, and I feel like I want to bring him on.
So now,
people will never eat them.
This is date fudge.
Staring at me.
There are no nuts in here. It's dates with the chocolate blended in.
Oh, I'm going to eat the whole thing.
But now these are sweet. This is it when you want.
I love dates.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
So it depends what you're after, and I do so many different kinds.
So good.
Do you sell them?
I do, but only to now and again because it takes a lot of time to make
Babe, you can't go home with those. You're leaving them here.
I know. I knew I was going to have to leave those.
Lethal. It's so good, but it's nutritious as well.
So my clients, on their menu, it says breakfast is this, with 2 chocolates. Lunch is going to be a baked potato with some salad and veg and 2 or 4, whatever. There have been times in my life where I'll have 8 of those because I just... I was
so good.
They're good.
Now I won't have too much. So
Yeah,
I
I'd
go
finish
days
this
without
thing.
touching that. But now there is a little bit of caffeine in there. I don't do caffeine, so I will not eat those after about 4 p.m. Otherwise, I'll watch myself sleep at night, wide and tired all at once. But my grandkids love those chocolates. They've got used to them. Their friends have got used to them. And
that's delicious. We're going to bring you in. You're going to teach us how to make
So
those.
yes, I'll come and show you how to make them.
The rest you'll give
I
us
love
the
making
recipe.
food. I'm a foodie.
I think that's important, and that's why I like both of your books.
I love food.
Which we brought in. Bev, yours is called Organic Flexitarian. Sneak up on yourself in 365 days. Explain that concept. I like that. It's a recipe or a
recipe,
a change,
reading,
a habit to
quote,
change.
you
every
read
day.
each day. So you wake up and you read that thing. And
And then I've seen yours. Eating, lose weight, gain health, find yourself. And the reason why I loved it was all these African-inspired recipes as well. Because you have things like sorghum. What else is in here that was traditional that I like? Do you have tripe in here?
Yes.
That's what I remember.
The whole sustainable eating is that
Eating the whole cow.
there's some research that says if you slaughter a cow, we only eat about 15% of the carcass. So we're throwing away.
Terrible.
Then you say food is expensive, a piece of steak, because we want the nice parts.
Yes.
But the offal that we don't want, it's actually more nutritious.
Yeah.
And we come from cultures where we ate everything from a cow. We didn't throw away anything.
Yeah.
And a lot of my clients would think that was because they were poor. Then they travel to Greece and Spain and all of those countries, and they come back and say, I went to France. We had chicken feet for how many euros? And I'm like, But when the grandmother gives you tripe, you're like, live in sentence. But we don't think about the issues. We're happy to pay for it when it's in another country. When it's at home, it's poverty.
Sure. It's drawing inspiration from books like the ladies I brought into studio today and from other plant-based books. We're going to show you how to add more variety in the kitchen when it comes to including vegetables in your diet as well. Guys, thank you so much. We have to bring you back. There's so much more to discuss. But this was so informative. You just reminded me about things that I've forgotten as well. And I can't wait to try some of your recipes and have some more chocolates as well. So we're talking about supplementation for vegans specifically, and the Salal team sent over some supplements that they believe that every vegan should be taking. And obviously the controversy and the debate is always centers around vitamin B12. The B12 they sent over, vitamin B12 methylcobalamin, is quite nice. It also assists with mood, stress, and sleep. It's in that category of supplements. But this one is quite nice because it's taken sublingually, so under the tongue. I've tried them out. It's got a great taste and it just dissolves underneath the tongue. So that's a nice vitamin B12. And then obviously the debate for most vegans is how do they get their omegas? Now, omega oils or fatty acids are essential fatty acids, meaning that the body cannot produce them itself. So we need to get it from our diet. And we need them in what is known as EPA and DHA, the right ratios of omega fatty acids. And so the source is quite important. Now, many people, obviously, many nutritionists believe that the animal sources are better, so fish sources. We have a krill omega. Let's see where it is. Yep. Krill are shrimp-like organisms that live in the Antarctic, or tiny shrimps that live in the Antarctic, and they said to have the best sources or be the best sources of EPA and DHA. So the omega krill oil is also good. It's just as a general wellness supplement. In fact, many people believe that if you're going to take one supplement, you should just take a good omega-3. So the krill oil yields EPA and DHA in, a fairly 2-to-1 ratio in this one, which is a good ratio. But if you're a vegan, you obviously don't have anything that has been derived from any animal sources. So that's where you would have the omega-3 flaxseed oil. Now, the form of omega-3 that this one comes in is alpha linoleic acid. There's a little bit of a tongue twister there, ALA. The only challenge with ALA, which most vegans need to be aware of, is the conversion from ALA to EPA and DHA can be quite slow. And so that is the only concern when you're taking an omega supplement. Many people believe that the animal source or the krill oil source or fish source is much superior to the flaxseed source, but there is an option available for vegans. And then the final option that we have for vegan supplementation is a super mega B vitamins, and this has got from B1 all the way to B12, and it includes biotin and folate as well. There's even some inositol in this as well. So those are all the supplements that they recommend for vegans out there.
If you're giving them cow's dairy and stuff from an early age, you're messing with the sugar balance. There's lactose in there,
biochemistry and everything.
Messing
and
with the
so
gut.
Good for exactly.
Then they're craving things that they shouldn't be craving. And so my son's been on probiotics also since he was born. He's been on tissue salts. He calls them minerals. He eats the little tissue salts. So it's such a blessing.
Wow.
And I think it's one of the best gifts you can give your child is a good start. When he's drinking tea, he's having organic rooibos with a little bit of honey and
See why I get jealous every time I come to Leafy Greens. So we're chatting to Antonia DeLuca, and a few years ago, one of my friends and also a wellness professional, Lisa Raleigh, challenged me to do more of a vegetarian/vegan diet. And at that point in time, I had read a lot about veganism, but I was just not interested in giving up animal-based products. But I decided to give it a shot. And I trekked all the way to Leafy Greens because it was the only place I knew that would be able to, where I would be able to eat something that was completely plant-based but was delicious. And the topic of our episode is the healthy vegan.
So we're not criticizing veganism, but we realize that many people don't do it right. And you and I have had that conversation before, actually, in that just saying that you're vegan for moral or spiritual reasons or ethical reasons is fantastic, but there's a whole nother journey. And I think I just want you to share, now that we're doing LiveFit with Stace, I want you to share your journey, how it's evolved, the things that you've learned as well, and also how leafy greens in this beautiful space came about.
Thanks, Stace. So I think, veganism is definitely twofold, and you touched on that briefly. It can be just purely from like a moral perspective, and then the diet can include things like white sugar and a lot of white breads and things like that, which is not necessarily healthy. And then I think you get people that are on the other side that are more interested in health, and they find that veganism is maybe a gateway to that, and that's a little bit more where my family and I are on this side. We've always had our beautiful organic vegetable gardens here on the farm at Leafy Greens. From when I was a little girl, I was picking and eating out of the garden, so it was very much an organic farm kind of diet, for lack of a better term there. And so I do have the odd egg from our chickens that we have here, and I wouldn't call myself a very strict vegan, but I definitely feel that a plant-based diet is the way to go. It's the way to go for health. It's the way to go for the planet. It's sustainable.
I believe in, I'm more of a flexitarian. I believe in intuitive eating, and you're very much on that as well. You listen to your body and what your body tells you to do as well, which I think is still important within the vegan space.
Definitely.
Because when you start eating a predominantly plant-based diet, especially if you don't have the stomach acid or the digestive enzymes, it can be difficult on the system. It can be abrasive on the gut as well.
It can, and with my vegan journey, I mean, Leafy Greens is almost 10 years old now, and I was very, very strict at the beginning. And you kind of, you evolve and you start being a little bit more gentler on yourself and saying, you know what, that's not cheating if I eat something that's non-vegan. You want to bless your food and make sure that it's always nourishing you and that it's the highest quality food that you can afford or get your hands on. And I think you need to bring the beauty back into your diet and your lifestyle, because otherwise it just becomes like a diet.
Well, I mean, Leafy Greens is an institution, and it's such a beautiful space. It's a wholesome space as well. And the more you're mentioning, people are aware of it. Where do you draw your inspiration for the menu? Are you getting inspiration from local sources and the local produce that we have, or is it still predominantly led by what's happening on the international scene?
So that's definitely twofold as well. I think you get the customers that drive out here to have their favorite dish. So that always needs to kind of be on the menu.
Don't you dare change it.
But I very much try and change the menu according to what's in season and what we have in our garden. I mean, at the moment, at the beginning of the year, there's always tomatoes and figs and grapes and zucchinis and all these amazing things.
So what's always in your fridge, in your home? What's your must-have list?
So with my first recipe book, you'll see that, because I come from an Italian background. So it's always tomatoes, garlic, basil, baby marrows, eggplant. You're very like Italian traditional fruit and veg.
You always have your own arrabbiato napolitana sauce.
Always, especially for my son. So that always lifts anything. If you're slicing zucchinis and frying them up with a bit of coconut oil with some onion, and then you put a bit of that nice Napoli sauce in there. A bit of a drizzle of balsamic. You've got a beautiful dish,
That was actually my go-to when I started doing more plant-based eating, was I put everything in a homemade tomato, napolitana, arrabbiata type sauce. And for me, it masked the flavors, because at that point in time, my palate hadn't developed, to appreciate good veg and good greens. But now, it's always a good go-to, actually.
No, definitely. And your herbs, your natural spices, flavorants, those types of things that do lift the dish. So again, if you're just making wilted spinach, which I love, if you've got a little bit of garlic, or you've got a little bit of turmeric, or some smoked paprika or something, then it really just lifts that dish.
So what are we cooking today? What do we make?
So we're launching a new menu soon, and we are doing a mushroom Benedict for breakfast. And a potato risti and beautiful mushrooms and spinach and things like that. So it really is. So we're in the kitchen today, and we're going to be making one of our new dishes, which is launching soon on our menu. It's a vegan mushroom Benedict, so it's going to be one of our breakfast dishes. And we've got all the ingredients here. Over here we've got a potato rishti. Then we've got some black mushrooms here, which are really a very good go-to for a plant-based diet because they're very meaty and very satisfying, delicious. And then over here I've got a bit of spinach from our garden, which has just been sauteed with some little button mushrooms and a bit of onion. And this is cherry tomatoes and red onion, just done with a bit of olive oil, some avocado, some rocket, also fresh from our garden. And then this is our vegan cashew sauce, which we've added some turmeric to, which is made like a bit of a vegan hollandaise and a little bit of rock salt. Then we just put our black mushrooms on there and then some of our spinach mixture. So it's all about preparation. Tomato mixture on top of that, and it's tomato season, so these are beautiful tomatoes from our garden, and then just some nice sliced avo, picked from the garden. You got to have your greens in every dish.
When it comes to veganism, vegetarianism, and even just plant-based diets, and you think of a movement practice associated to them, you can't help but think of yoga. So I've invited Taryn Elise Herselman from the Shakti Yoga Therapy Center, and in fact, she's my yoga teacher trainer, to chat to us about the history of yoga and why there's this association with veganism. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you, Stacey. It's a pleasure.
It feels weird being on the opposite side. Hey, I'm the one like asking the questions, controlling things, and now you're going to lead me through a practice, but tell us why yoga is associated with veganism.
Okay, so obviously this is my opinion and this is based on my understanding and knowledge and training of yoga. So, you know, there may be other opinions and I'm sure there certainly are, and they're all equally valid.
But since you're adding a caveat in there, or like a little bit of a disclaimer, the reason why I wanted to chat to you is because you've spent so much time in India and you do have an authentic view of the practice in general, or the philosophy of yoga. So even though you may not ascribe to certain beliefs, I think you have enough experience to be able to speak about it, generally speaking. So since you're adding in your own disclaimer.
Yeah. All right. So just briefly, a bit of the history of yoga. It's obviously a bit debatable, but anything between 5,000 to 10,000 years old.
Yeah.
And really, when we look at probably the fundamentals of yoga, it was the Patanjali's Yoga Sutras that we draw upon, especially in the style of hatha that's more widely practiced in the West, which is hatha yoga. And within it's called the Ashtanga Yoga, meaning the 8 limbs of yoga. One of the limbs or it's actually the very first limb, is the yamas. And within the yamas, one of the principles is called ahimsa. So apologies for all the Sanskrit language, but that is the origins of the text.
Yeah.
But actually, now that I've mentioned Sanskrit, it's probably worth just touching on that a little bit, because Sanskrit is such a rich and dense language. One word can take on multiple interpretations.
So true. When you think of veggies and maybe incorporating more of a plant-based diet, and you think veggies can be a little bit boring, Indian food springs to mind because it just really is so rich from that perspective. What was the food like when you were traveling in India?
So I've had multiple experiences. The very first ashram I stayed in, which is Yoga Vidyadam, they have this wonderful kitchen staff, and it wasn't just about the food, it was the attitude and the energy in the kitchen, and they made sure that those girls were happy and joyful, and if there was any problems, they sorted it out, because they said your energy while you're preparing the food goes into the meal itself. And I think that had a lot to do with why the food tasted so good.
Yeah.
But there was such a huge variety, and the yogic diet comprises of 50% solid food, 25% liquid, and then 25% should be empty for the digestive process to take place.
Okay.
You know, yoga isn't really about advocating what is right and what is wrong, and you should do this and you shouldn't do that. Yoga is fundamentally about your energy.
Yeah.
And what we want to do as yogis is, as we learn to tap into our own inner resources of energy, which are, according to the text, completely unlimited, we rely less on external sources of energy. So obviously, when is it that we really need meat? It's when we're really feeling like we need that extra bit of energy, if we've been pushing ourselves quite hard. So I think there's multiple reasons why the vegetarian diet works and why it works, especially in that ashram environment. Obviously, it's wonderful because you just arrive and the meal is prepared and you dish up and you eat it.
Amazing, yeah.
But in your normal day-to-day life, where you are rushing from meetings to classes to preparing to administration, to have the time to set aside to do that requires a lot of discipline. And obviously within that, yes, your diet and your food is very important, because again, what is the food? Ultimately, it's prana, it's energy. And you want to get the best kind of energy for your body.
And that affects the physical body, the mental body, emotional body as well.
I think people don't realize that what you eat affects your emotions, it affects your thoughts. It has such a huge impact on all of those layers and all those levels of being. That's why when we do eat in an ashram, it's always in silence. You don't talk during the meal. Okay. And it's sort of starting to filter in. I've seen a few things, people calling it mindful eating and those kinds of things. And it's exactly that.
As we westernize things,
Put the Western touch on it. But exactly, before you dive in, just check in, how is my body feeling? Am I actually hungry right now? Am I thirsty? If I look at everything on the plate or everything on offer, like what am I actually drawn to? And then while I'm eating, what's going on with the rest of me? Am I distracted? Am I thinking about something else? Am I actually focusing on the food? So in its highest form, that moment when you're consuming your meal should be a meditation.
Yeah, it's a spiritual practice. Yeah, well, I mean, if you take the vegan philosophy of not causing any harm to creatures or to animals or to anything that's living, you are a living body. So it's a great way of movement. It's a great form of exercise. But when you're doing it and when you're practicing it, cause no harm to your joints, to your muscles, to your mind. Also, don't go in there thinking that you're going to achieve something. Just see where your body is at. You can challenge yourself, but it's treating your body with love and respect at the end of the day. So we're going to do some sun salutations. And the reason why I asked Taryn to do this is because, like I mentioned earlier on, the yoga that we become accustomed to is more the vinyasa flow style of yoga. And I think even that was what I noticed was the hatha style of doing the sun salutations was very different from what I was used to practicing in many studios. So let's show people how it is different and let's get into it.
Okay, so Stacey, I'm just going to guide you through a sun salutation. So I'd like you just to find the top of your mat, connecting your feet together. You're going to bring your palms connected. Again, the same principle, keeping the energy circuit closed, and connect your thumbs to your breastbone.
So when you consider moving to a plant-based diet, the biggest criticism that people get is that you're going to have mineral and vitamin deficiencies, which largely is quite true. If you know how to do it, I've met many a healthy vegan. In fact, many of them who compete in bodybuilding and fitness competitions as well. But the problem is when you start off, many people eat a lot of carbohydrates, starchy carbohydrates, a little bit scared of the green veggies, which provide the iron, the vitamin C, even the vitamin D as well. I think when it comes to vitamin B12 and omegas, there is some controversy there because the best sources do seem to be animal-based products, but you can get around that with good supplementation. One of the best ways to mitigate these deficiencies is probably IV nutrition or IV infusions, as people have come to refer to them as. And that's because you bypass the digestive system, it gets straight into your blood system. So I'm sitting with P here today and we're at the IV bar. So P, let's chat about your journey to being a vegan. You started out being vegetarian.
Yes.
And what was the reason?
So I was 18 and I was always growing up. I always loved animals so much. So even if...
Were you that person that had like hundreds of dogs and cats in their home?
I had one dog.
Oh,
because my parents were kind of...
And did you like snakes and all sorts of animals? Really?
Yeah.
That's why I don't visit Petra at home. You never know, a snake might be there.
No, we'll never get snakes because we'd have to feed it rats. And hey, that's not going to happen. Unless it's happy to eat like my broccoli, then we're never getting a snake. No, so I was always I always loved animals. So even when I was younger, if I was eating an animal product and someone pointed out what it was, I'd push my food away. So that was since I was young. So
and no one ever guided you to make that decision?
No, we're Portuguese. Whole family are meat eaters.
Yeah,
seafood
and chicken and giblets and all of that.
Chorizo, pregos, the whole lot.
Yeah.
So even to this day, a whole family still eat meat and chicken and seafood and all of that.
And I think that's why we're talking about something like IV infusion, because many people do make the decision for purely health, ethical, or moral reasons. Yeah. And they haven't a cooking clue when it comes to what they need to be including in their diet from a food combination perspective to make sure that they get the nutrients that they need. So that's when something like this does become beneficial as you learn, because it's a journey of learning, right?
It is, because you grow up in a certain way knowing how to eat certain things. So of course, when you don't eat any of that and you don't cook. So I only started cooking when I was 40. First time I started cooking, honestly. Because I didn't enjoy cooking. I didn't like veggies. So my staple diet pretty much was toast with cheese, because I was vegetarian, so I still did the dairy.
So you still included dairy.
So it was toast with cheese or cereal with soy milk, or what else would I have? I'd have like a little veggie sausage with a slice of cheese on toast.
Which is processed as well.
It's processed as well. So, if I had greens, it would be like half a cucumber or a carrot.
Oh my gosh.
No, it was shocking.
I can hear the nutritionists like
it was
cringing.
Shocking. I was sick all the time, so everyone's like, oh, it's because you're vegetarian. I'm like, no, it's because I don't eat my fruits and veg.
And that's important, because many people will sort of go to a plant-based diet and then they don't know how to make these decisions. They get sick, their skin doesn't look great, or they may end up with other ailments, and then people are like, yep, that's because you're a vegan or you're a vegetarian. And in many instances, they're not making that connection. And again, there is no argument when you choose it because you're doing it for spiritual, ethical, moral reasons. If people are doing it for health reasons, then that's when the debate is quite strong. I think in this particular drip, you had vitamin C, you got some glutathione, antioxidants, your vitamin B12 as well, and vitamin B complex as well. But you should be getting quite high doses or good doses of antioxidants if you're eating good plants, vegetables, fruits. Do you know what I mean? Because that's the colors that you see in fruit and vegetables. Those are the phytonutrients. Those are the antioxidants that you need. In the beginning, were you eating the colors of the rainbow as people recommend you should? No.
It's eating the orange stuff, which is the potatoes and fluff chips. Because also, if you went out, there weren't options. You either had veg of the day, which was always like pumpkin,
and there's wheat in almost every vegetarian option on menus, or at least when you decided to become vegetarian.
Completely.
Nowadays, you can get gluten-free vegan, gluten-free vegetarian, which is important, I think. But at that time, it was the same time as I was diagnosed as gluten intolerant. You can find anything gluten-free on menus except for potatoes.
And rice, yeah. Well, you've got a meeting to run off too.
Yes, I do.
So thank you so much for coming
Thanks
to chat to me. And I think P highlighted some important things is that, well, I think the biggest takeaway for me is that if you're doing it for health reasons or you're doing it for spiritual, moral reasons, you've got to do your homework. You've got to make sure that you're getting in a good variety of plants and vitamins and minerals from your plants and your veggies and your fruit as well. And consider something like an IV drip if initially you feel as if you're depleted, but you're doing it specifically for spiritual and moral reasons. If you're doing it for health reasons, then you really need to do a lot of research. And you can find Petra on social media. She's got an amazing NGO called Just One Thing 365, and she does stuff to impact people, pets, and the planet. So go and find her and get involved in her causes as well. Thanks, P.
Thank you. So go be a healthy vegan. Represent.
That's the title of our episode, The Healthy Vegan.